Hey guys, welcome to Yesterday's Coffee, the podcast where we chat about fitness, nutrition, and business all over coffee that may or may not have been brewed yesterday. Welcome to our first episode of the new year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
2019, Happy New Year.
It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah, we took a couple weeks off, even though we said we'd be back next week. Didn't quite happen.
Yeah.
But here we are, first week of January.
We enjoyed the holidays, though. It was good.
Yeah, it was nice. And so with a new year brings New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
And so that is what we're going to be discussing today. First of all, I think New Year's resolutions are great. It's a perfect time to set goals for yourself, figure out things that you want to accomplish in the new year, things that you may want to improve upon or devote more time to. So that being said, New Year's resolutions are great. And so the first thing I wanted to ask was, what are our New Year's resolutions? So I wanted to start with you. Do you have any this year? Have you made any?
I kind of disagree. I don't think New Year's resolutions are that great. So
you haven't made any?
I haven't really made any.
So why don't you like New Year's resolutions?
I just feel like it's a lot of pressure on people to just like come up with a New Year's resolution because it's like the thing that we do for some reason. And I feel like it makes people jump into things too quickly and not set smaller goals for themselves. I feel like people like attach themselves to this one large goal or a couple large goals and they don't necessarily think it all the way through. So I think that's where a lot of people end up falling off.
I agree with you on that point. I don't necessarily think setting a big goal is a negative, though.
No, it's not a negative. I just feel like the pressure of it being New Year's and a New Year's resolution, it just causes people to, I don't know, bite off more than they can chew without thinking things all the way through. They're like, oh my God, tomorrow's the 1st. Like, what's my resolution? What am I going to work for this year? Instead of actually taking the time to think through the steps and the process of that goal, because everyone wants to start on the 1st. So like during the holiday season, people don't have a lot of time to like plan out this whole process for the next year. But then come the 1st, they want to be doing something. And then I think they get wrapped up in that without ever having gone through that process of actually trying to like plan things out step by step or giving themselves like the right tools to stick with something. Yeah. So I don't know. I just think it's high pressure, and I think the pressure stresses people out and causes people to fall off their goals. So I don't necessarily like New Year's resolutions. I'm not saying that you can't have goals, and I'm not saying that like the beginning of the year isn't a good time to start them. I just think having more time, more thought, more planning put into some of your goals is more important than just being like, oh, tomorrow's New Year's Day. Like, what are we going to do?
I completely agree with that.
You know?
So have you taken time to set out some goals for yourself?
I mean, yeah, I do have some goals. Obviously, just kind of getting a little bit more organized in 2019 because we just moved into this house and we don't really have a system of organization yet. So I think that my biggest goal for 2019 is learning how to better organize our space and my life and my business and my health all together.
And get fully moved in too.
Yes, but like more on the organizing side and putting more systems in place. Like my main goals are actually more about systems and processes than about resolutions or final results. So,
sure.
Yeah, that would be my major goal.
Anything on like the fitness end specifically? Or just kind of like a holistic health view?
Well, I mean, obviously I always take a more like broad general wellness view.
Sure.
But
is there any one thing in particular that like this year I want to do this?
I don't have anything like that yet, to be honest. I need to get my life organized before I do that. so that's like step one,
sure.
Which involves, because like obviously over the holidays, and we talked about it in a couple of podcasts ago, the fact that we, haven't really been super on track with our meals or meal planning or health in general. And
comes with home ownership.
Yeah. And I mean, there are reasons for all of it, sure. So I think I just need to get back to the basics, and I want to make sure I'm doing it the right way. So I really want to go into 2019 with like a balanced routine and not say, okay, I need to pick up where I left off 3 months ago.
Right.
So I want to kind of give my body some time to adjust and be just really flexible and understanding in that process. Because again, I think that's another thing that doesn't come with resolutions is like flexibility or the thought that like you can press pause or you can reevaluate.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be full steam ahead.
Right. It's not one of those things like you miss one day and the year's
And then it's
shot.
over. Exactly.
Yeah.
And people see it that way, I
Mhm.
think. Which, again, isn't the problem with resolutions. It's just like the problem with how people look at them.
Yeah. So we're jumping ahead a little bit. My resolutions.
Yeah,
for
I was
the
going to
year.
ask you. Just so I
Yeah.
wasn't going to just keep talking forever,
Okay.
I promise.
Get you that coffee in the morning, man.
It's much needed today.
So my main thing, I got a few. I've got a few business-wise. I've got a few different projects I'm working on there that I'm looking to complete in the near future. I've got a few goals for the podcast itself and where I want to take that. And then fitness-wise, my main thing going into this year is really working on, like seriously working on mobility, flexibility, and durability.
It's a good goal for you.
So, like, it's something that I've flirted with off and on, and it typically crops up whenever I have like a little injury here or there. I'm like, you know what? I'm finally going to devote some time to this, and it never
happens.
sticks.
Oh, the theme of resolutions.
And so it's never really been a resolution for me. It's been like a goal, kind of half-heartedly along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, I am really getting focused into yoga. Specifically, and so we've already done a couple yoga workouts so far, and they've been really tough, but they've been really good. I put a little money into a program, so I've got a little bit more investment myself there.
So here's the thing: what you did was exactly what we just talked about. You thought about this beforehand.
Right.
You didn't just decide on New Year's Eve that you wanted to be more flexible or more mobile in the new year. You thought about this. You talked about it, like 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, no, it's been...
And you bought the program, and you watched all the videos of the program, and you had a process and a plan, which I think is going to make you successful.
Yeah, it's been a long process because this past year, training-wise for me, even just being like outside of the norm of my typical schedule in the gym, I've dealt with numerous injuries, numerous nagging things here and there. And it's like, at this point in my lifting career, I shouldn't be having these issues. Yeah. And I really want to address it head on. And so it was something that is definitely out of the norm for me. I'm very good at putting a plan together for getting stronger or getting leaner or putting on muscle. But getting into these yoga flows and man, I'll tell you what, I was so sore in some of the strangest places.
Well, and to watch Kyle do yoga is very
inspiring.
Is comical in a way.
I think inspiration.
No, it's just because you see yoga as like this set goal that you have to accomplish.
That's not true.
Which kind of works against what yoga actually is at its core.
That's not true, but we'll discuss that.
Well, I just think you're not as forgiving during like the yoga flows and the yoga poses.
I don't let myself give up on the yoga flows.
Well, but again, the whole kind of process and point of yoga is that it's a personal practice and that it's practice.
It's a personal practice.
And that you need to be like gentle and forgiving and flexible, like mentally flexible, not just physically, like
it's a personal practice.
Yeah. You approach it as a bodybuilder and it's funny. And I think it's funny.
I'm enjoying it so far. I'm going to be sticking to it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really good for me. It's one of the major parts of the whole realm of my training that I've been missing. And I'm looking forward to seeing how I integrate that over the coming year. So now that we are through our own resolutions or our own goals, the biggest thing that you definitely can't avoid is the vast majority of people never follow through with these. So there's a statistic that Business Insider put out, I think it was last year, that 80% of New Year's resolutions are over or done by the second week of February. So that means the vast majority of people aren't even making it through 2 months out of the year, much less embarking on this whole new change with their life. And you touched on that a lot early on. Yeah. What were you going to say?
Well, what I was also going to say was, this is a statistic saying, 80% fail by the second week of February. But I also read another statistic that said 40% of people fail by the end of the first week of January.
40%
So
for the first
40%
week.
of people are already
quite
done.
the resolution.
So like at this point, because what's the date today? I mean, we're at
it's
just like exactly a week into January, right?
A week into January.
So at this point right now, there are already 40%, almost
gone.
half the people who made resolutions are done.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Which, makes me feel bad because, again, I feel like those are the people who decided that goal December 31st.
Whatever it may be. Or it's one of those recurring goals every year that kind of was half-heartedly put in place a decade ago and has never actually been seen through.
Yeah. Well, once you, and I think this is the problem too, is like just choosing the same goal that you've had year after year without really maybe putting more specifics to it is like in your brain, you've already kind of given yourself permission to fail because you've failed already so many times. So unless you really approach that goal from a different angle, or if you put more specifications to that goal, I don't think you're really going to be successful this year either.
Well, and what's the quote? It's like a goal without a plan is just like a dream or whatever it is. Like there's no action plan there. So like me, for instance, I knew what I wanted to get accomplished this year. And I'd been thinking about this for the last couple of months, but my schedule just wasn't open enough to begin anything. And going into the new year, I'm having some time open up to be able to devote back to that. And I knew I need a plan in place. So I figured out what I wanted to follow, what kind of jived with me. Found a teacher that I've followed this strength coach for years and knew that his systems work really well for me. And so I had this plan that I put in place, and there's steps to go along the way. It's not something just like I'm going to try to lose weight this year, and I'm going to do that by eating less.
Well, I mean, that's what people do is people they just say my resolution is to lose weight.
Yeah.
Or
there's no plan associated with it.
It's so broad and it's so general, and very rarely do they actually think through the steps of that process. They might say, okay, well, if my goal is to lose weight, how do people lose weight? From everything I know in my memory, people go to the gym and people eat salads. Yeah. And so whatever you attach to weight loss, for some people that's what it is. For some people it's eating way less. For some people it's cutting out alcohol or carbs or whatever that person attaches to, what's kind of built into their brain that equals weight loss is what they start doing without really doing any more research than they've done in previous years. You know what I mean? Right. Rarely do people sit down before January 1st and say, okay, what is my actual plan of action? And have times changed? Should I look up and see if there are better ways to go about these things? So that's the step that a lot of people are missing is the planning and figuring out the steps of the process. Because if you start with a general goal like weight loss, what are your actual small goals that are going to get you there?
Right.
How many days are you going to commit to going to the gym? What kinds of workouts are you going to be doing? What does that look like for you? What is the actual schedule going to be? So what days of the week, what times of the day are you going to go to the gym and get a specific workout done? That's how specific you should be going into one of these goals.
Yeah, and there's two sides to that. So there's the individual that doesn't really have the plan and they just have this goal. And then there's the other individual who has the goal and comes up with the craziest plan that is no way going to allow them to stick to it long term. And so we'll see this all the time where somebody hasn't been exercising for the last 3 months, 6 months. Maybe they didn't even exercise in the past year, but this is the year that they're going to lose the weight. And so they go on this ultra strict diet right out of the gate, and they're in the gym 6 days a week. And sometimes they're doing 2 days. And it's first of all, you don't need half of that. And you're setting yourself up for this massive failure because you're going to get to the point where your body just shuts down. You are not in the condition to be able to go from nothing to full blast. And so finding that balance between those two is what's most important. So when I'm working with somebody that's just beginning exercise and if they were doing nothing before, I'm probably trying to get them 2 or 3 days in the gym because we want to establish a consistent pattern that allows them to recover and continue to get back into the gym and performing better each time. If you're going from 0 to 5 or 6 days in the gym of quality training, not just walking for 10 minutes and going home, then you are going to be really beat up at the end of that. Your body can't recover from that.
Yeah, you're going to burn yourself out. And I think the best way to approach that is to say, okay, whatever you think that your goal is starting out, or whatever you want to commit to week 1 of January, you have to think forward 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. Will you realistically, or can you physically or mentally still be doing the same habits that you're trying to build now that amount of time later?
Yeah. At the end of the year, do you still see yourself going to the gym 6 days a week?
If the answer is no, then don't start with that.
Yeah, right. So that's exactly how you should frame it. And the other piece of that is, if something comes up and it's a crazy week and you don't make it to your set schedule, it's okay.
It's okay.
Like, it doesn't matter that you missed a day. Get right back on the plan.
Just keep going. It's consistency. We've talked about it in every podcast,
right.
I think.
But you've got to set yourself up for success with that, knowing that what you're building into your schedule and these habits that you're creating should be based around something that you're trying to stick with long term.
Yeah, they should be. And again, if you have something that's more of a time-bound goal, which we've talked about before, you can be a little stricter, or you can make goals, but they're time-bound, remember? So, I mean, again, so if your goal ends in the middle of the year, so like summer, June or July, again, can you realistically see the things that you're doing right now at the beginning of the year still in June or July to reach that goal? Okay, great. Stay with that.
Yeah.
But if you can't, if it's not even realistic to last 6 months to make it to that time-bound goal, then reevaluate.
Absolutely. And
like, you can move in phases too. Like, you can start, like Kyle said, work yourself up to a certain level where you feel comfortable. If, 3 months into the year, you're like, okay, now I think I have a time-bound goal for what I want to hit in 2019.
Right.
Then maybe you can ramp it up a little bit with the idea that you're doing that in order to reach a goal, and then that's going to come back down. Like, you can plan out your entire year to say that things are going to move in phases.
Yeah. And that also isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card for pushing yourself and getting uncomfortable. So if you're trying to embark on a new goal and you're trying to, we'll just stick with the weight loss goal here, and you haven't been in shape for years or whatever it may be, I promise you, you will be uncomfortable. If you're doing this properly, there will become a time where one night maybe you're a little hungry going to bed, or maybe one day you don't really feel like going to the gym, but you go anyways. And this isn't a way of saying you've got to come up with a plan that gives you no excuses, gives you excuses to not do things because you don't feel like doing them. That's an element of any good plan, is there's willpower involved.
There is.
You will always
you just have to be honest with yourself. Like, you know when you're making an excuse to yourself.
Right.
Like, you know better than anybody else.
Yeah.
So just don't lie to yourself. Don't try and trick yourself. Be completely honest with yourself, and then you're better able to make the decision of, like, am I just being a wimp today? Like, should I just, like, get up and do this? Or am I actually feeling very physically or mentally exhausted and I shouldn't go?
Right. You will know the difference between actual physical exhaustion that says, I know I'm supposed to train today, but honestly, I'm not going to get anything out of it because I'm already so beat up and I need to recover, versus you're just, I don't feel like going to the gym today. I don't feel like driving to the gym. Like, whatever that BS excuse is, because they happen for all of us. They happen for us
all the time.
But it's a matter of working through that anyways. And the vast majority of the time that happens, once you get to the gym, it's fine.
Yeah.
You'll be able to get through the work. It's just a matter of starting it. Starting it is typically the hardest part.
Yeah. So just not letting your own excuses get in your way.
So kind of trying to wrap up everything that we just talked about. If you do have a resolution, the way to go about it is, first of all, finding that goal. Don't be afraid of setting a huge goal, but know that if it's a big goal, you're going to have to break it down. And we're going to have steps leading up to that point. So if you are starting from no exercise and your goal is to run a marathon, don't go straight to full-on marathon training day one, because you're not ready for that. You need to be building yourself up, getting in the gym a couple times a week, And then maybe every month add another day. So if you start in January, twice a week, easy enough to follow. February, let's tack on a third day. March, let's tack on a fourth day. And then build yourself up from there and use that kind of stepwise framework to give you a path to follow so that you're not just jumping face first into something that you can't handle or sustain long term.
Definitely. Well, and the other part of this whole thing too is finding your motivation for this thing. So again, don't just pick the same resolution you have year after year.
Right.
If that resolution no longer motivates you. Yeah. So you have to, it could be the same underlying goal, but reframe what that goal actually is and what it means to you. Because if you don't really have a true connection to it, then there's no reason for you to stick with anything.
Yeah. Motivation is what feeds your willpower.
Yeah.
If you have no motivation, you're never going to have willpower to stick through the times that suck.
Exactly.
So whether it's reframing the goal, picking a new goal, you have to have a reason for why you're doing this. And it has to be something that resonates with you. Like if losing weight to be healthier doesn't resonate with you, then think about losing weight for a particular activity or a family member, whatever it may be. It's got to be something that you can stick to when things aren't going so smoothly.
Yeah, there has to be a reason behind it. And I think the other really important thing is that you have to have a really good support system.
Yeah.
So if you have ever failed on a resolution because you have at some point been surrounded by people who either tease you for your resolution or, you know, kind of try and play devil's advocate against your resolution, or just in general are like very negative about it, about your ability to stick with something and, you know, reach your goals, then I think this year might be the year to selectively share your resolutions with only people that are going to be the most supportive.
Sure. And at the end of the day, it's still your goal. So
yeah,
even if the support system isn't there while that sucks, you can still do it.
Well, I think it's a really big, a really important part, but I think that
it is.
There will always be somebody who's supportive. But if it's only that one person, then only share it with that one person.
Yeah, exactly right.
So you have to find the people who are going to be the most positive and supportive and, you know, help you out with this goal. But you don't have to share it with everybody. No, so don't. You don't. That's okay for it to be, you know, mostly just for you.
It's better to show them when you've accomplished it.
Yeah.
Versus telling them. So
absolutely.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Welcome back to the new year of yesterday's coffee.
Oh, and shout out to Jen for our shirts that look so good.
The merch will hopefully be pushing some of that out in the future. But thank you guys again. If you've got anything that you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out to me at hypertrofit.com. You can find Alexa at therootedrd.com. And we will see you guys again next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.